Chicago Police Superintendent Jody Weis is Chicago's top cop. After serving 22 years with the FBI, Mr. Weis was selected by Mayor Daley and approved by the City Council. He began his term in January 2008 and supervises one of the largest police forces in the nation. We're pleased to have Mr. Weis as our guest. I'm Anita Alvarez, and welcome to Chicago Bar Association's Justice and Law Weekly. You have the honor of being my very first guest, so I welcome you, and I'd like to just ask you a few questions about your experience in the FBI before coming to Chicago.
That'd be great.
22 years with the FBI. Can you tell us a little bit about your career and what you did, where you were assigned?
Yeah, I bounced around quite a bit. I started off in the Houston field office. I served there for about 9 years as an agent. And based upon my background in explosive in the military, I went to the Bomb Data Center for a couple of years at headquarters. I then went to the Violent Crime and Fugitive Unit at headquarters. I then went out to Phoenix as a field supervisor. Following that 4-year assignment, I was in Chicago as the Assistant Special Agent in charge. Pretty much had program management oversight over all the different programs during my 3 years here. Following that assignment, I went to headquarters for a second time, this time to serve as the Deputy Assistant Director over our Office of Professional Responsibility, and then a year later to go and be the Deputy Assistant Director in our Human Resource Division. And then after that, I was the SAC, or Special Agent in charge of the Criminal Division in Los Angeles, and then my last assignment was the Special Agent in charge of the Philadelphia field office. And then following that, I was fortunate to have an opportunity to do this job.
And what made you decide to even apply for the superintendent's position?
You know, Anita, it was actually an interesting situation. I had served here for 3 years, and it was in November of 2007. I got a phone call from an old friend, and he asked me, so would you be interested in being considered for the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department? And after I fell out of my chair, because there's never been an outsider since O.W. Wilson, we talked about it a little bit, and I said, you know, it would be an honor. I said, I'm eligible to retire in December. Sure, you can certainly throw my name into the list. And right after Thanksgiving, I met with the mayor. We talked for about 3 hours in D.C., and then 2 days later, I got a call from his office saying that he wanted to announce my nomination for the position. And it really came really fast. I went from not even thinking about this position to actually being nominated and here in Chicago in about a 2-week period.
So you went from being a federal agent and spending all of your years in law enforcement on the federal side of things
Right.
to now being given the opportunity to manage the second largest police department in the nation. That is a big switch. What are some of the, I guess, the experiences that you have had so far making that transition?
Well, one thing that helped is there was no lag time. I literally retired on one day and started this job the next. So there really wasn't a time where I was, kind of away from the management or leadership of an organization. Philadelphia was an office of about 500 employees, about 300 agents, and then you come here and you have 13,500 police officers and several thousand civilian. But I've always kind of taken it's a management principle. You have about the same number of direct reports. You just have larger groups of people underneath them. So in terms of my inner staff, the number was always about the same. So that really wasn't too intimidating. The challenges have been is with any large organization, is communications. Oftentimes messages get lost through the filtration process as it goes down to the men and women on the street. So that has been a challenge for us ever since I've been here, is actually getting our message out and changing some of the ways that we've done things. Historically, the Chicago Police Department has always been a very centralized organization. Every decision ran through headquarters. And my philosophy is kind of a decentralized approach to allow our commanders to develop individual strategies to fit the communities that they serve, with a centralized accountability process so that we're kind of looking over their shoulders, making sure that they're doing the right thing, making sure that they're getting the results that we want them to. But I believe that leaders should lead, and I don't think it's effective to have every policy, every strategy coming out of 3510 South Michigan and make one-size-fits-all philosophy. And that's always been the way I've tried to operate. And it's a cultural thing, because for a long time people have been fearful of striking out on their own and trying to develop their own strategies. And I've encouraged that. I don't want you to be reckless, but I need people willing to take risk to advance what they're doing and move it forward and provide all the citizens, a safer community, because we have a very, very diverse city. as you well know, and it's impossible to say this one strategy is going to work perfect in all of the different communities.
So how have those changes been working? Are they working within your department?
You know, it is working. It's taken a little while. I think people were afraid to say, does he really mean that? And what I've tried to emphasize is, don't worry about the number of arrests. Don't worry about the number of convictions. Focus more on an absence of crime. That's our goal, 0 crime. And if we can start reducing criminal activity, if we can start reducing disorder, it's going to make people feel safer. And if people feel safer, they'll have more confidence in the police department.
So coming from the outside, you have brought new ideas into the Chicago Police Department, and you just said it yourself, it's a cultural change.
Right.
Do you think this has helped you, being from the outside, coming in to manage this department?
Yes and no. Yes, I think because it gives a fresh set of eyes to look at the department, and I did have the opportunity to work with half a dozen large police departments throughout the United States, so I've seen some things that have worked well, I've seen some things that have not worked so well. The decentralized approach is a process and an approach that Bill Bratton has used extensively both in New York and LA, and he's had very good results with that. And so I've seen where that can work. The downside is people don't know me. Chicago tend to be a little bit of a closed city. I think they're much more comfortable with someone from within. And then you throw on the FBI background because unfortunately the FBI does sometimes have to go after bad cops. So there was some adversity I was facing just because being an outsider, being from the FBI. So I've had to overcome that, and I just keep working away at that, trying to talk to as many officers as I can. And I'm hoping that by seeing the changes we put in place, and we've taken training like exponentially where it was before. We're having much more training opportunities for our men and women. We're trying to give them better equipment to use. We're getting better police cars in place for them. We're trying to bring a sense of fairness and consistency to the disciplinary process. I was shocked at some of the things that had gone on in the past where, in my opinion, it was just some mean-spirited decisions. And we're just trying to be fair and consistent. And I think we're headed in the right direction, but it'll take time. It's a big ship and it's turning slowly. Not to say it wasn't a very effective crime-fighting organization, but it's kind of that old adage, we want to take a very good organization to great. And I think we're headed in that right direction.
So you're coming up on your 2nd year in office in January,
right.
And it sounds that you've made a lot of changes, but it also sounds to me like you're going to continue to move this department probably in a different, in a different way that it has ever been moved before. And I think that you know, some of the programs and programs that we work with you at the State's Attorney's Office, I have found that we've had more cooperation in the last year than before. And the training is essential. You touched on it, and I think it's extremely helpful for our officers and offices like the State's Attorney's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office to work together on a lot of different programs and a lot of different areas. We have seen in the last couple of months, particularly here in the city of Chicago, the increase in the violence with our kids, with the youth. And probably what everybody is talking about is the Fenger High School incident where a young man was murdered and beaten to death. Can you tell us, with that particular instance, you know, what have we been doing, or what have you been doing as far as the police department to control that, or to you know, advance new ideas in controlling that?
Okay, I think we have to keep things in perspective. That the incident at Fenger High School, as horrific as it was, it's hard to enforce what's in people's hearts without getting some information that we could act upon. I don't know if there's anything we could have done to prevent that senseless tragedy, but I think we have to look at why did that happen? Why were peers, students, people who go to school with Darian Albert, why were they filled with such hatred and rage that they would strike out at one of their own students and murder him in broad daylight? So where I think we need to go is working in a very, very close collaboration with the Chicago public school system. And we have never had a better relationship than we have right now. We're exchanging information real time. We've had 3 conferences. We brought the principals in with our commanders. We're helping them merge a very, very strong relationship. Even little things like, could you alter your dismissal times by 5 minutes to allow us to move resources in to cover your school? And the principals have been very agreeable.